Can you improve your English fluency with storytelling? The answer is, of course, yes. But how? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. I'm going to walk you through how you can improve your English by telling stories, and how you can then tell better stories once you improve your English. Yes, it's pretty cool. So, before we get into the video, if you enjoy it, I would really appreciate if you could hit the like button. That's a very small thing you can do, which really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. So hit the like button, subscribe. Now let's get into the video. To be able to tell a good story is to be able to get a bunch of complex ideas and fit them together in a natural way that other people would like to listen to. Okay, so what do I need to be able to do that? How much language do I need? How good do I need to be at using the English language, right? So you can use how good are my storytelling skills almost as a subjective way to measure your English fluency, your knowledge of English, your ability to use the language, right? And it's not just knowledge, by the way. I said use the language and your knowledge of the language. Because if you know a bunch, that doesn't mean you're a good storyteller. You have to be able to use all of those things you know in order to tell a good story, right? So then you go to the next level, which is, okay, I can tell a pretty good story. I can talk about my vacation that I took 6 months ago, but I like to make it even more impactful, even more interesting. Now you have to challenge yourself to broaden your vocabulary, to learn more specific words that can get those ideas across very well, right? Those very, very specific words. So that's a challenge to you to continue to learn, right? So number one, being able to communicate in a story is a way to measure, okay, where am I? Am I making progress? Can I use the language? And then number two, this driver, this thing kind of pushing you to, I need to learn these new words and phrases so that I'm able to express my ideas better. And I'm using stories very loosely here. I don't just mean a thing that happened last Tuesday. I mean, what we talked about, a thing that could happen, a thing that I believe, a thing I want you to understand, right? This is all storytelling skills, right? But also, going the other way, being able to listen to a story and understand it and enjoy it is challenging your listening skills, right? It's challenging your ability to comprehend the subtleties of what someone else is saying or perhaps writing, right? So it goes in both directions. You're challenging yourself to be able to put complicated ideas together and continue to hone and learn to get better at expressing your ideas. And when you hear other people's stories, you're pushing yourself to pick up new things from others, from the way that they express themselves, how they use intonation, to improving basic listening skills. I didn't catch that part, but maybe the next time you hear it, I was able to understand everything that you said, right? So storytelling is sort of the center skill that can improve and push you to improve as a communicator, but also as someone connecting with others, as a listener, right? And you'll pick up words and phrases from that as well. And I think it's also important to mention that because stories are entertaining, interesting, right? We like to listen to stories. It's usually not a pain to listen to a story. That is what language is for. And sometimes when we're learning in a very technical way, grammar books and this word goes with this word and this should be the past tense, all of that stuff, which is good, can force us to lose sight of what is really important, and that language and using language ultimately is for communication and should be therefore interesting and engaging and enjoyable, not painful. So if you ever feel like you're getting lost in all of the exercises in the grammar books and all that stuff, maybe change directions, or at least start looking at it a different way. How well can I express myself? Am I challenging myself to get better at that? Am I engaging with others? Am I learning from others, right? So try to enjoy the process. And I think when you're engaging with stories, either telling them or listening to them, you are doing that better, right? If we can miss the forest for the trees would be the technical parts, and the forest would be storytelling, communicating with others, engaging with others, okay? So now let's talk about a couple of specific practical tips for actually getting better at telling stories, right? Challenge yourself to, when you're explaining something, when you need to give a proposal, when you need to get ideas across, let's say, challenge yourself to think of that as a story, and then to incorporate specific new words and phrases into that story. So you always want to be pushing yourself if you're going to get better at English, right? So, okay, I learned these 5 new words recently. When I'm doing my proposal this week for my team, or when I'm talking in my book club, or whatever I'm doing, I'm going to try to bring in these 5 words that I've learned recently, these 5 new phrases that I've learned. And the reason that you should do that is if you're not challenging yourself to use what you learn, then it's likely to be lost, and you're never really going to feel comfortable with that. So then why did you learn it, right? So anytime you have a chance to communicate or speak for longer than a couple minutes, right? Longer than a minute, use that as a chance to pull in some of the things that you're learning, put it into practice, right? So it's sort of a challenge mechanism, right? An application mechanism. Now, what about comprehension, right? What different levels of things can you understand? If you can answer abstract questions about a story or about an article, then maybe you understand it pretty well. But how do you know that? My suggestion would be this. If you have an article that you've read and that's a story, generate from, let's say, ChatGPT, generate a set of 10 open questions about that story or that article, and then try your best to answer those. If you want to test your understanding specifically, then make those knowledge questions, right? And you can, again, get those from ChatGPT. Just paste it in and say, give me 10 comprehension questions about this article, this story, this chapter of this book. If it's a chapter of a book, great, you're testing your comprehension. If it's a video, for example, one of my videos or an interesting video that you've seen and you want to see if you understand it, then get the transcript from the video, paste that into ChatGPT, get, again, 10 questions, ask for comprehension questions, ask for open questions, whatever you want to check for, right? And then see how well you can answer those. So you're checking your comprehension, right? Now, what about putting the pieces together? We talked about complex ideas. What about putting those pieces together? Because complex ideas put together are what make up, or what can make up a story, right? I think it's important to practice this. This is where repetition and practice and getting comfortable comes in. It's unlikely that you're going to get good at something when you do it once every 4 months. So you want to do it on a regular basis. This would be talking about what happened last week, something interesting you learned last week, a challenge you overcame last week, a bizarre thing that you experienced or thought about and why that happened. These are all, by the way, stories. And just record yourself talking through those. And as painful as it might be, go back and rewatch that and give yourself feedback. If you have friends you can talk to and share those with, great. Those opportunities can be few and far between. But at least record yourself. Do it regularly. Do it twice a week. If you instead you want to talk about, I don't know, your favorite products that came out this week, then do that. Start a YouTube channel. I always recommend people just start one, even if you don't have any viewers. Just do it because it's going to challenge you to consistently practice putting those complex ideas together. And the more you do that, the more comfortable you get with it. You start picking up little things. If you're watching back what you did, then you start noticing things. If you're putting it on YouTube, then you start getting comments. And this all leads to this feedback process of getting better, pushing yourself. And consistency is very, very important there, right? But don't forget writing as well, right? Writing is a powerful tool. You should practice writing too. Putting your ideas down in writing, you can go back and read through them and refine what you wrote, right? So keep a diary. There are many other benefits to keeping a diary, but one being, right, you can capture your current state, how you feel, what you're thinking about, and you're practicing again, putting together those complex ideas using language, right? Using language. Okay, so those are just a few things to keep in mind. And again, this is one of our most ancient human practices, storytelling, i.e., putting our complex ideas together in natural, compelling, hopefully, comprehensive ways that make people feel something or communicate something. And so if you start looking at yourself as a storyteller, if you start thinking of yourself in that way, as you're improving your English, then you don't get bogged down in the technical stuff. You become a communicator, and you remember that language is for communication, right? And also you make more connections. You engage with others more, whether you're listening to stories or telling them. So there's so many benefits. And again, it's a great way to evaluate your progress. How much am I able to express naturally? How do I feel when I'm doing that? Could I be using more interesting, nuanced words and phrases? Can I understand every word of that story that I'm hearing? So many positive things, so many benefits. And so I hope you can start challenging yourself in this way if you haven't already done so. If you have any questions, let me know. If you haven't already done so, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. And also check out my free course, Natural English Conversations, in the links in the description.